focused more on teaching than I have on competing or doing exhibition, because my ultimate goal is to just help as many horses as I can and be happy with people, and I can't make that happen if I'm not willing to teach people how to do that.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Young Black Equestrian, the podcast. That was Nahshon Cook of Nahshon Cook Horsemanship. Today he is going to tell us all about his journey in the equestrian world and give us so much advice on how we should approach horses and horsemanship in the future. Enjoy. You are now listening to Young Black Equestrians, the podcast, with your hosts, Aubriana Johnson and Caitlin Salam. Thank you for joining us for an episode of Young Black Equestrians, the podcast. We usually
Thank you for being interested in my work.
Of course. We usually start off our episode with just saying something we are thankful for today. So if you want to, if you want to go ahead and share something that you were thankful for, that'd be great.
Oh, I'm just thankful for another chance, really simple. Just another chance to get it right.
Yes, every single day.
Yeah.
That is definitely something awesome to be thankful for. Caitlin?
I can back off of that. It's just saying, because it's the 1st of September, I am thankful to be in another month. It's a new month, so I'm thankful to see another one.
Yes, and we have a wedding coming up. Woo woo!
Yay for wedding!
So that's going to be exciting. I am thankful for... I'm thankful for when people think of inviting me to places. Like this lady that lives down the road invited me to a clinic yesterday, and it was completely out of the blue, like 10 o'clock at night the night before, and I was like, oh, thank you for thinking of me.
That's great.
So that was a lot of fun.
What kind of clinic was it?
It was a horsemanship clinic with Linda Hoover. She is really big on explaining like the biomechanics of why you should ride a certain way, and altering or she focuses a lot more on fixing rider position than fixing horse, because most of the times it's our fault anyway.
Yeah.
So
no, that's great.
There was a lot that she shared yesterday with just little subtle things, and it allowed for people to come out and discuss like, oh yeah, well, I've been to my chiropractor and she says that I stand this way and I got a rotation and blah blah blah, so that makes sense as to why I ride a certain way. And I was like, well, there you go.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. The biomechanics and understanding that is always forefront,
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I am thankful for. So Nahshon, just tell us briefly kind of about yourself, where you're located, your discipline, and all that.
Okay. So I just bought a farm. My mother and I actually, we just bought a riding facility that we're at in Parker, Colorado. And my discipline of choice is dressage, classical dressage, but I've trained jumpers, and I have students who jump, and so yeah, that's what I do. I've trained my first horse up to the Grand Prix. So
nice.
that's really fun. So that's where we're at.
So how did you get into horses?
So I actually started riding when I was 13. When after I had broken my leg playing football, my mom said I needed to find another discipline, another sport.
Understandable.
And so I started riding at an after school program for inner city kids called the Urban Farm at Stapleton here in Denver. And yeah, I rode there from the time I was 13 to the time I was 18, and they got me really good teachers. And yeah, that's how I got started.
That is awesome. That is awesome. We have spoken with several people whose ultimate goal is to open a facility like that for inner city kids. So it's amazing that we can at least talk to someone who is a product of that and has been very successful.
It was. I mean, there are roads in life that you're meant to take, but you never know how you're going to get on it. And, it feels like that was kind of my segue into this wider realm of equestrianism.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it's really important to be thankful for stuff, because I don't necessarily understand how and why it all worked, but I'm thankful that it did.
Yeah.
Because they gave me an opportunity to just ride horses that had been donated to the program, and then just the space to do it, and then they got me, like I said, scholarships for really good teachers and shows and everything. It was insane and wonderful. Yeah.
That's cool. And can you share with us the name of that program again?
It's called the Urban Farm at Stapleton.
Okay. Awesome.
And the program was embracing horses. I think it's changed since. I haven't really been in contact with them, but that was where that's where I started. That's right. And it was, and the funniest thing is that it was right across the street from the Denver County Jail.
Well,
we'd go on little trail rides through the old airport runways, and we'd come back, and the inmates would be screaming from the windows.
Oh my goodness! I'm sure that was a sight.
Huh?
I said, I'm sure that was a sight, and they were like, "This is exactly where you don't want to end up, kids."
I mean, when that's the beautiful thing about the city, is that everything is there, and it was really cool because the city and county of Denver had rented that plot of land. It was like 29 acres out to them for like $1 a year.
Wow.
And so they were able to develop it and build an indoor arena, and but it was in a pretty rundown neighborhood, but the gentrification, of course, has definitely changed that, and the demographic of people who live there, and so it's not what it was, but I'm glad I was there when it was what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's like everybody's response to gentrification.
Well, and the beautiful thing was that I was able to catch the bus there from school. It was like a 3-hour bus ride, but I was able to get there from school, and it was accessible to me after I was done with my studies. So it was good. Yeah, it was great.
You said it was a 3-hour bus ride?
Yeah.
How often did you go there?
I would go usually about 3 or 4 times a week.
Wow.
And then I would catch the bus there, and then my mom would pick me up and then take me home.
Wow.
And so I was able to do my studies. I was able to do my studying and stuff on the bus right there.
Yeah, that's strategic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to have that at 13 to 18, that's pretty awesome. To have those time management skills.
Yeah, it's important to have some place to go when you need some place to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
So right now, what horses do you own? What are the names? How many do you have?
Okay, so personally, I have 3 horses, and on my Facebook page, I think that's where you guys got in contact with me initially. I have my Dark Bay, that's my high school horse, Nova. He is 15. I got him when he was 10, and all my horses are rescued. So he was in a jumping program for kids and didn't work well, and so they put him up for sale, and basic sob story. But I got a hold of him when I came back into the country. I got a call saying that they needed my help with him, and I went out to see him, and and we've been buddies ever since. And then I have a young thoroughbred mare. She is 5. Her name is Mohawk. And then I have a 6-year-old named Remy.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and then I have 6 other horses in training in my stable right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
You are all day horse stuff.
Yeah, it's a situation of like, what do you really do when dreams come true? Like I stay in my barn, I stay down in the barn for, 12, 14 hours a day, and I don't go up to the house, it's a really wonderful thing, and it's a really, and it's like, when you're given the chance that you've always hoped for, like, what do you do with it? And you realize that, work is the only thing. You show up and you ask the right questions, and if they're not the right ones, you learn what the right ones are, and you listen, and you teach. I'm like, that's my life, and I'm at a time, and this is the first time in my whole life that I'm not doing something that I wish I was doing something else.
Yeah.
And able to create a life for myself in that way on my terms. I'm really grateful for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when did this become like a life dream for you? I know you went through the program in school, but did your mom like encourage you to go to college? Like, was she trying to get you to do other things?
I did go to college. I've always loved horses, and we weren't too privileged when I was younger, but I always loved them. And the program that I went through was a nonprofit, and that's kind of where I began to realize, because of the folks that they had gotten me access to, that I realized the life doing this was a viable thing if I was good enough, and so I just studied. I read everything that I could, and I still do. I'm a voracious reader, and then when I was 18. I had offers around the country to come and work at different barns, and my mom told me that I had to go to college, and then I got an offer to go up to Montreal to go and ride with the Cheval Theater, which was like started by one of the people who started the Cirque du Soleil. And they had a show that called the Cheval Theater that came through, and they invited me up, and my mom's like, no. She says, you can join the circus after you go to college. And so I went in as a comparative religion and philosophy major, and then switched to counseling, and then I had gotten a scholarship for my graduate work to the University of Denver, and instead of doing that, I gave the scholarship back and went and traveled around Asia for 4 years. And when I was in Asia, I went to teach initially, and ended up working at a sport horse stud, Watana sport horse, and I trained their show jumping and dressage horses, and coached and and all of that stuff. So it's kind of just been winding through,
Mm-hmm.
It's been something else. Yeah.
So, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I am 34.
Oh, okay. I was like, that you're putting a lot of years on you.
Yeah, no, I'm 34. I'll be
Okay.
35. I'll be 35 this year.
That's awesome. So, share with us the experience of how you acquired the facility that you have currently.
Oh, jeez. Prayer.
Yeah.
You know, my mom. I mean, that's really the long and short of it. I was working and training out of a breeding stud, and I was ready to move my practice because I was driving. Geez, I was probably good, between my lessons there, and then I'd go way down south, and then every other weekend I'd go way up north, and I was just all over the place. And between, all of those places, I put like 500 miles a week on my car.
Oh my goodness.
I was making good money, of course, but I had looked at moving other places, and there were other trainers who didn't want me to come to those other places, and I talked to my mom about it, and so she told me that she would help me, and that these were my criteria. And so we're still pretty close to the city. We're about 10 miles away from the International Colorado Horse Park.
Mm-hmm.
We had gone a gazillion places looking, and none of them felt right, or something fell through, or and then I told her, I said, Mom, I'm all done looking for these places. I'm gonna go put my CV in to go and train and start young horses. And then I did a Google, horse properties in this particular area in Parker, Colorado, and this place came up, and it wasn't officially listed on that Saturday. So we called them to see if we could see it, and they said no, and so we made an appointment to go see it Monday, and then we put in our offer. And so it's 10 acres, and I have 20 stall barn and a full Olympic-sized indoor dressage arena, and then Olympic-sized outdoor jumping arena in the back of the house. That's what we did. We put our offer in, and we were the first ones, and they offered it, or they accepted it, and that's how we got it. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That is pretty cool.
So it's good, and so it's a really good family project. And she's retired. My mom retired about 2 months ago, just so she could help me.
That's what I want my mom to do.
So she could manage my everything, right? Like my horses coming in, and the money part, and all of it in my schedule, and so that's how that happened.
Well, congratulations to her retirement.
I love my mom. She's my ace.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I know. Moms are great. So, share with us what some challenges are that you have faced, if any, as a minority in the horse industry.
I think just people realizing, once people see what you can do, it really doesn't matter. It hasn't mattered for me.
Right.
But one, it's been getting in to have the opportunity to show people what I'm able to do. But after that, pretty much, it really hasn't been that difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's where just the acquisition of knowledge has been so incredibly important. Because, I mean, when people give you a chance to share what you know, it's really important that you know what to share.
Right, that you can step up to the plate.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just like, when you have to always be ready for opportunity because it'll come, and if you're not ready, that's not life's fault. It's yours.
Yes.
And then, and so, yeah, no, that's really been the main thing, it's just like, that's just the opportunity, and so, like my major thing was, because I didn't really want to teach, I didn't want to show, I was a counselor at the Children's Hospital here, and I just had a friend who dared me. He says, I bet you you can't get into the expo. And so we have across the country there are horse expos by region, and so mine here is the Rocky Mountain Horse Expo, and it covers the Rocky Mountain states. And so I got in, and I did an exhibition ride, a high school exhibition ride on Nova, and then I taught. And after that, I had so many requests for clinics that I was able to quit my job.
That's awesome.
And so that was last year. And then my mom saw that it would be a viable thing, and so she told me that she would help me get a place. And so, I had sold 2 of my pieces of real estate, and then she covered the rest for me, to get my space.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
So your gift will make room for you. Yours, I say your gift will make room for you, and yours surely has.
Well, I mean, and the thing is that it's one of those things that, like, people can only believe in you and support you as much as you're willing to walk. And your willingness to walk is like your proof to yourself of what you believe you're able to do. And I think that, I had a set of guidelines for myself that would guide me. And the first one is that, like, my love must be enough. And from that, I work. I study, and I take these broken horses and I put them back together again, and then they become really valuable artists. I mean, and the thing is that, in spending so much time with them, and in really realizing where their fear muscles are really, really strong, like, I've begun to really understand, just how much, listening to them will fix problems, but in understanding, like, okay, this is where they're guarding themselves, right? And so you go through your Rolodex of theories, you and your Rolodex of masters and their ideas on this particular problem, and you try it, and sometimes they don't work, and sometimes they do, and when they don't, like, the horse will guide you through. I mean, and I had a friend once tell me, he goes, Nahshon, if you keep following your horses, you'll find heaven in every step. And like, it's like you learn to listen. You learn to listen, and you go into the arena with an open heart, and you make sure that it's a safe space for them to be vulnerable. Just like us when we're learning, right? Like, instructors that are not mean and don't listen are not people that we learn from well.
Right.
And it's the same with horses. It's like, we don't respect if we don't respect the fact that they have the answers to the questions that we're asking, and that we may be, in fact, asking the wrong question. Like, we when we don't accept that, we never find it. But when we do, we are grown exponentially into something useful for horses and they're people, and I think that that's the thing that, like, you know, it has the potential to make you a better person, and more compassionate and open person, because, you know, when you really get down to it, when around riding, like, horses and people have the same fear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have the same fear, and so, you know, if you can go through and observe what it is and not judge it, then you can come out on the other side successful, for sure.
Yeah, that is very true. So what is your ultimate goal? Your if everything went the way that you wanted it to go, what is your kind of final vision for your property, your farm, your students, yourself?
Well, I think that you know, my ultimate goal is to be a master of the art of training a horse.
Mm-hmm.
That is my ultimate goal. And having my property there, and having my own space, you know, to do that is huge, because it's a safe space for me.
Mm-hmm.
To do my work, right? And so just keeping the space clear, and going in with a pure heart and a pure intention, and, you know, and leaving the space open for the folks who want to come and study in that vein. That's definitely what it is for me. That's my ultimate goal for my property. Like, you know, I think more importantly than that question is the fact that it's a place where, you know, my whole family, my brother and my sister and her husband and her children and my mom, like, it's where we can just hang out. We can let our bellies out and be with each other,
Mm-hmm.
and be with our horses. And, you know, the babies are coming up in a world that I wasn't able to come up in, and so, you know, they won't have to face the same hardships that we've had to face, and, like, their
Mm-hmm.
reality is this from the beginning, which means that their futures will be very different than mine.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to be a conduit,
Mm-hmm.
to be the conduit for my family that has made this possible. And so, you know, that would be it. That would really be it. And then for my students, like, you know, I focused more on teaching than I have on competing or doing exhibition, because, you know, my ultimate goal is to just help as many horses as I can and be happy with people, and I can't make that happen if I'm not willing to teach people how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of my ultimate. That is my ultimate goal. And I'm there. I'm reaching it, and so it's just now it's the thing of how far is it gonna go.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm there. I'm there for the most part.
That's cool. That is cool.
You know.
So, what advice would you give to an aspiring equestrian, either someone who is just getting into riding, or, like us, someone who has the ultimate goal of having a property where they get to do their own thing, whether it be, you know, just training and riding, giving lessons, or something more? What advice would you have to share?
I would say take every opportunity you can to move towards being as great as you can be. There are principles to get there. You know, if you're going to teach, you have to understand what you're teaching,
Mm-hmm.
which means that you have to dedicate your life to studying what you're teaching.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, and that's like Toni Morrison said, right? That wonderful quote. She says, you know, teaching is about taking things apart, but writing is about putting everything together. You know, I mean, and for riders, it's, you know, that training is about taking everything apart, and the presentation is about putting all of that stuff together, and you know, and it's learning to look to your horse as the final say as to what work has been correct or not, regardless of what others feel or say. And it's also not being afraid of allowing yourself to be worthy. You know, to be great, you must want to be great.
Yeah.
You know, and like that is something that will only happen if you give yourself permission. Nobody can do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, and you know, whatever it is that you do to get into that space in your heart to where you allow yourself to be led, like if you have that goal, you know, rain or shine, like, and you're not afraid to keep walking, you'll get there. So, like that's what I said, you know, that's what I'm thankful for, is another chance to get it right. And then stuff starts happening that just doesn't make sense, and it works.
Yeah.
And it's what you needed and where you needed it to be, and when you needed it to be that, and you just you be thankful, and you say thank you, and you keep walking.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And what I would also say is, you know, if you're going to train, and you have the opportunity to train other horses, choose the most difficult ones that you can, because those are the best teachers. And because you read the lives of the great masters of dressage, at least, you know, Oliveira, Van Nijendorf, all of those people, Melissa Stens, you know, you have those are the horses that taught them how to be the great horse people that they are and were.
Yeah.
You know, they teach you how to get around the problems, and you realize that, like, you know, and that's why it was really good that you know, went to that biomechanics clinic, because you realize, like, you know, you not breathing below your rib cage makes the horses tense, you know, and they teach you how to lower expectation, but not necessarily lower quality, you know, which are all things that are very, very important. And then more importantly, they teach you how to trust yourself, which, if you're going to be in this as a business, is incredibly important. You know, that you trust yourself in your work enough, and you have proof of your work, you have proof of concept that allows you not to bend and be blown in the wind by the fads of this industry. You know, because you know, the more professional you become, the more the temptation and the pressure will be to do things that aren't in the interest of the horse first.
Right.
And if you latch on to that, your love for it will die.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like the whole, you know, putting the entire kitchen sink contraption on their face just to get a certain look, you know, in different disciplines.
Well, you know, I mean, and I will, and you know, I mean, the whole thing about gadgets, like, you know, in training horses, you know, positions have two effects, right? Show or therapy, right? And if it's the show, it's going to break them down. It's going to break them down. But if you understand what part of the body needs to be isolated, and how to do that and to what degree, it can heal them. You know, I mean, because I've brought back horses who, I mean, to health, who had kissing spines, which can be debilitating. You know, I mean, and when gadgets come into play, when gadgets are necessary, I use them. Because the thing is that, you know, like with the spinal processes, the tops of the spinal processes touching each other, it causes the horse's back to contract depending on the degree, and so so the muscle begins to form in that way to hold that tension.
Right.
And so there are say like the Pessoa training system. If you have it on a low headset and you have the horse working on the lunge, granted that it's been prepared correctly, like what you're doing is you're changing the skeletal structure by the development of muscles, so that those muscles are holding the bones in a particular place and way, and which in turn will heal the horse. Which is why I said it's so integral that knowledge is something that you go after.
Right.
And an understanding that, in its truest, the training of a horse is an incredibly creative act, because two horses are going to need two totally different things.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's important to be able to listen to them to say, okay, like I had an Arab stallion that I got up to pre-St. George in a snaffle bit, and I've had some young horses that had to be started in the bridle right at training, in the double bridle right at training level.
Yeah.
I mean, and they need different things, and I think that to be true in anything is to be a servant. I mean, and so to just serve them.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, so that's kind of, and then too, don't be afraid to go where people are.
Yeah.
I think that's another very important thing, that you can't be afraid.
Right.
You can't be afraid. You can't be afraid to be seen. You can't be afraid to be criticized. You can't be afraid to be praised. And to not rush yourself to get there, because once it happens, it's pretty overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's enough to make me still want to go and run and hide sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, those are all the things that making it and thriving in it, and not just surviving, because like you still want to make enough money to be able to rest.
Yes. Yes.
And that's really important.
So what do you enjoy outside of horses and reading?
I go to the movies occasionally,
Mm-hmm.
but I spend time with friends.
Mm-hmm.
Some friends, but all of my friends, they're busy people like I am, and so we love each other, always, but we meet very occasionally.
Yeah.
And I love food. But I don't like to cook, so I like to eat out.
Well then, at least you know.
I know. But to be quite honest with you, I've done almost everything I've wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I've traveled and I've seen the world, and the horses have taken me to a whole bunch of different countries and different continents and all of that stuff. And and now I have my own space, and I'm just sitting in the space of having my own space.
Mm-hmm.
And of having rules that I believe in enough to enforce, and to keep my space protected, and and to teach and to help people reach their goals.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful life. It really is.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Caitlin, do you have any other questions for Nahshon?
So, Nahshon, I've been following you. I think your horsemanship page for a while.
Yeah. Sure.
There's a post that you posted when you got the property you have now. But I also remember a post. It was in black and white, and it's a picture of you on you're basically sitting in the middle of the arena. You're on your knees.
Yeah.
I don't think you added a caption to it, but what happened in that picture?
That was one of my first clinics in Fountain, Colorado. And there was this lady came in with her horse, and this horse had so much incredible trauma, and I was tired. I think, geez, that weekend I had like 12 lessons a day. Um, and that was the last lesson of the clinic, and it was consequently the hardest horse. And I just, and I had gotten on him, and the horse, he was just like chattery, and she was so terribly afraid. And I was just tired. I was just tired. And and so I didn't have a chair, and so I just knelt down, and that picture was captured. But it's you know, it's I think it's what it has cost me, and that's what it looks like. You know, I mean, you give all of yourself because that's the only thing that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and sometimes you just are tired. You know, I mean, and that image was that it's a beautiful image. It's a beautiful image, but like it's just, I mean, like that's what you do to be effective. Sometimes you give the best of yourself, and then you go home and you rest. And it was really interesting. I had talked so much for that clinic that for 3 days afterwards, like I had lost my voice. It was insane. But you know, like I was just starting out, and I was trying to take whatever anybody would give me, and I was shocked that anybody had even signed up for the clinic. And so, you know, I kept getting calls like, well, this person wants to do it, and I was like, sure, unwisely, you know, but it's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And like I said, like when your prayers get answered, what are you going to say? No?
Yeah.
You know, and walk away, and like, you know, I mean, and not help for somebody who truly needs your help.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, and realizing that, like, you know, sometimes your opinion can be the difference between whether this horse gets sold off to a situation that's not helpful for them, or it, you know, or it stays where it is because there's a viable plan forward to work through whatever problem has arisen. You know, and like, you know, when you're called on to help like that, like, you know, all you can do is give all of your heart. You know, and like that was what that situation was. You know, where you give all you can only give everything.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that is truly a blessing.
Well, I mean, and so, like, that's, I mean, and that goes back to your question, like, what do you have to do to, like, to make it, like, and that's what you have to do. You have to love it enough to trust that it'll carry you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to, but you also have to be wise with your money, and you also have to be wise with your time, and you have to learn how to say no. And you have to learn how to not let people, like, pay you the least amount possible, because you have realized that you have what they want, and so they have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you have to be able to have what you need from that exchange. You know, and you can't love other people's horses enough to put your well-being in jeopardy. Because I'm going to tell you, I said a prayer. And I told God, I said, I am not going to do this if I'm going to have to beg people. I'm just not. And like, if that's going to be the case, like, take it away and give me something else, because I'm not gonna bake bread. I'm just not. I don't have to.
Right.
And if my love for them requires me to do that, then I don't want it.
Yeah.
Because everybody can't be happy but me.
Right.
That's not fair.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's the truth.
And
that isn't fair.
You know, I mean, and you realize that there's a culture that has arisen with trainers that, you know, I mean, you know, that kind of is what it is. Like, you know, it's like, you know, and that's why it's so important if you do decide to take this up as a vocation, that first you for me, right, and this is just for me, you try everything else that you may have interest in. So I've taught and I've traveled and I've written stuff and all of this other kind of stuff. And if it's still there, if your love for it is still there, then give it a shot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But if your love is not strong enough to hold you in that space, there's nothing wrong with that. It's better to keep it as something that fills your heart and have something else that pays your bills.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's hard and it's a dirty world and it's one in which people's livelihoods oftentimes comes from smearing other people, and you just have to decide if you're gonna partake in that, and that's the value of having your own space.
Mm-hmm.
But to do that, you can't be afraid to be seen, because that space has to be maintained off of what you can offer to people.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so there's all of these really practical things that keep the art alive, and the practice of equitation, and the beautiful practice that it is, and that keeps it viable and enjoyable, and keeps horses at the top of the mountain peak instead of at the bottom. Because without them giving us their bodies, it doesn't work.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, I kind of went for a big mosaic there, but, everything in the end, just like in the beginning, comes from everything else. So, those are the answers to those questions.
Yeah. That is all right. We can... Yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, we're definitely big picture and fine detail kind of people, so we feel you on that.
You have to be someone who trusts your intelligence but doesn't ignore your feelings. Like you can figure stuff out in your head, but that you can hear your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just important in life. But it's really important that you know who you are, and
right.
that you are nothing but that.
Right.
Because being black, people will try to change you into what they think you want them, what they think you should be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's really important to know who you are and to be that, and to not let the horses be the only thing that defines you.
Right.
But have parts of culture that you agree with
mm-hmm.
also be at the forefront. I think my breeches are terribly uncomfortable, and so I wear my Dockers. I wear my chinos from Target. That's
mm-hmm.
what I train in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's really important to understand that, to be successful, you must first know who you are and be okay with what you define yourself as. And if you're not, don't be afraid to change it.
Yeah.
Because only you have that power.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to know that your power to choose is what's gonna form your life.
Yeah.
So take those moments when you have them, because sometimes you never get another chance to make a choice
mm-hmm.
for a particular situation.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to know who you are,
yeah, and take yourself,
to make that decision.
Take yourself as serious as necessary.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because and that's because it's that thing. You really can't do anything else for anybody if you're not first. You just can't.
Right.
And in dealing with clients and in choosing courses and all of this stuff and in choosing clients, you have to am I in a position for this to work for me in the capacity that I need it to? And if the answer is no, then it's not the right thing for you to do.
Right. So
regardless of what there monetarily is to gain from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So have you ever had to turn down a client or turn down a horse?
There was a horse. Oh yeah, there was a horse who came to my barn just recently. and all of the information medical-wise wasn't disclosed, and I sent him away. I sent him home. I had them come pick him up because I told them that I don't know what's going on with him medically, and I'm not going to do any more work until I do know that.
Mm-hmm.
And and so you can come pick him up, and the training fee will be deducted from your monthly what you have paid, and I'll give whatever you don't use back, but the board rate will apply until he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so and in matters of business, you give yourself as much power as you can.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Have contracts that cover every bit of yourself.
Right.
And give you the right. So, for example, if it's not working, I can ask you to leave at any time, but if you need to leave, I need 30 days notice.
Right.
These are things that are very, very, very important because, the most important expression of love in business is boundaries.
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You must define for people how far they can go with you. Otherwise, they'll go as far as they can.
Yeah, walk right over you.
That's right. And they will try to play you. And so you make sure that you have contracts that legally cover you, so you can honestly smile.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so these are all, make sure that for people who take pictures of you, that you have make sure that you have copyright.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that any video that's taken, that they can't release it or sell it without your permission. These are all things that recordings. These are all things that I've had to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's understanding that when you do take the leap of being seen and what people see they like, there's so much more to it than just practicing what got you there. Now this whole world of law and contracts and engagements and money and your time, all of that comes in, and every day you wake up when there's a proposal or something, you have to say, how is this contributing to the end goal that I have set for myself?
Right. Right. Right.
And knowing that you're gonna have to say no, even when it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Because that's the best thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so, and that's where a lot of equestrians a lot of professionals really get hounded. They're not good business people. They have weak contracts.
Yeah.
And if people sue them, then they lose everything. And so you don't want to. You have to understand that, if you do get to a place where you have a training facility and all of that stuff, you might want to set up the boarding part as a separate business from the training part, so that if somebody sues you for a training thing, they can't take your barn away.
Right. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Have contracts, releases for the barn and for you as the trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And putting in there, cover every bit that you can.
Yeah, all your bases.
Because, and anything that you think, if there's a hole in the turnout and the horse steps in the hole because a badger dug it last night, and you didn't see it, okay, so I'm not responsible if that's not negligence. That needs to be in a contract.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so these are all the things that come with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important that if this is what you decide to do, that you realize that this is also part of it.
Yeah, and you've got to do the research. Knowing the horse, that's all well and dandy, but doing the research and how to run a business and those things on the back end that could potentially cause you to lose everything, making sure you
Yeah.
have everything covered and
Everything covered.
explicitly
That's
put
right.
out, yeah.
That's right. And
Yeah.
and that's, I mean, and I think if like there's anything, like that's the most important thing to stress, and get rid of clients that aren't good for you.
Right. Yeah.
Kick them the hell out.
Yes.
Because they will, I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
I mean, they because they will drain you, and they will make you not love it, and ask for as few favors as you possibly can, so
Yeah, so
nobody
you don't
can
have
hold
to
that over
own
your
it.
head.
Right. Yes. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these are all things that are so terribly important.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're starting out, like trainers they're treated like the untouchables in a caste system.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like you do all the hardest work, and you take all these demands, and all you can do is make these people happy, and then you take what they can give you, and you have to decide that like that's not
how you're gonna live. Yeah. Yeah. No.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. That is.
And like if you guys are studying and putting all this together to make this work, and your work is proving that you're studying, and that you're and that this is more that like it is something that makes your heart happy, and that, like this is the reason why you truly are in the earth, and like God has given you these gifts to share with people, and you know that you're doing the right things because lives are being made better, then protect that.
Yeah.
Protect that as much as you can.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Love it that much that you cover all the bases.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I've had to kick boarders out when I ran a small boarding place. I like, girl, 1 month your check bounce? No, we're not doing this.
And that's the thing is that you charge for the people that you want, and make sure that those services that they're paying for are covered.
Yep.
And the thing is like, I don't have schooling horses because I don't want to have horses that need to be worked sitting around if there's nobody to ride them.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so all of my clients have their own horses.
Yeah.
And like I said, like I have clients who are preparing for the Grand Prix dressage test. I have clients who are Grand Prix jumpers, and I have people who are trail riders. And it's really, really important to be applicable to all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Have basic principles that can help all of those things, and then to be well versed enough in these areas where you can help them in the specialty that they choose.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? If that is what you want to do, but make sure that your prices support your dream, but that the work is worthy of those prices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's balance.
So like the horse care. Like, horses go to work better if their stalls are clean.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're just, and so just making sure that that everything is as seamless as possible, and that takes so much work.
Yeah. Do you have staff?
I only have 8 horses, and so I have my brother. My brother helps me, and my mom manages my stuff. So it's pretty small.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not. My barn it's not going to be full.
Right.
I don't want 20 horses there because I can't love them all.
Yeah.
And like I said, so and I'm running my facility as a training barn and not a boarding one.
Right.
And so the money that I have coming in from the horses that are in training basically make up for if I had 8 more horses in there.
Right.
And so so all of that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, that is awesome. You have shared so many gems with us today. I am just like blown away mentally. I'm so thankful that you came on today.
Yeah, and if either of you or anybody who's listening to this if they have questions, just feel free to shoot me a message on my Facebook thing. And I'll help however I can, because, I think, at the heart of it, that people are truly each other's gifts of grace. And if we help, then, we can make stuff better.
Yes.
But people have to know that they're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if you're not, you have to create space where you are.
Yes, and
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's what this podcast is about, creating this space to create this conversation where everybody can feel comfortable talking about their experiences when it comes to our identity in the horse community. That's what it's about.
It's okay to be black. And if you have locks, it's okay to have them.
Yeah.
And if you have a fro, it's okay to have that too.
Mm-hmm.
But if outside of the expression of that selfhood,
mm-hmm.
you want the work to be so good that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Right.
That's what you want. When somebody sees you ride, you want them to stop and think that in this moment, right now, this is the most beautiful thing I have to look at.
Mm-hmm.
You want to, and that doesn't happen if, one, you don't see, if, two, you don't practice, and, three, if your horse don't love you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to present something that is worthy of someone else's attention.
Yes.
Because then you won't have to talk.
Yeah. And then you don't have to explain yourself.
You don't. You don't have to explain yourself. And you must do it for love first.
Right.
Because if you do it for money, you're no different than anybody else who's just trying to hustle.
Mm-hmm.
And if all you're doing is trying to make it, you're never going to make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to be something bigger.
You know what I'm saying? You have to move beyond making it. It has to be this is, and what a gift to have a chance to create a life for yourself that you want. And if you have the chance to do it, then damn, do the best you can to get the most you can out of it. Because if this is our only shot around the sun,
mm-hmm.
Go with as many regrets as you can.
Mm-hmm.
With as few regrets as you can, rather. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you have to come to a point to where you have to say, yeah, well, I am black. And maybe that's the reason why people won't give me a second look.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to present something that makes them not take their eyes off of me. And don't present until you can do that.
Right.
Because you have a lot of mediocre white and other people who people will give their time to because it's no secret, right? Because because it's expected. This is a world that's inherited by them generally.
Mm-hmm.
And they know it, and we know it. And it's really important that everybody just stop acting like none of us know this.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Call a spade a spade.
Yep.
And like one of you said, the gift will make way for you, but if you don't study to maintain that gift, then you're not worthy of it. Because hard work goes a lot further than giftedness if the giftedness isn't maintained.
Exactly. Yes.
And you study as much as you can so that every word that you speak on this, people know that you know what the hell you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And you do it knowing that you don't know who all is in the crowd listening.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody that can change your life will probably show up.
Yeah. And you got to be prepared.
You have to be worthy of that attention and that opportunity.
Yeah. Yes, that is the truth.
I mean, it's so important. It's so terribly important. And then knowing that you deserve to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to my first championship, and actually I went to an engagement last year. I unloaded my horse off the trailer and put him in this stall. And this woman walked up to me. She goes, "Who's the owner and who's the trainer?" Like I was my horse's groom.
Say, I'm both, girl.
You know, I mean, and I mean, and it was just that assumption that this is the only space that I could feel because I walked off in a pair of jeans and a do-rag to put my horse in stall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's knowing that you can wear your do-rag at the horse show if you want to. You shouldn't have to change that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, being true to self.
And being true to them. And everybody else that's there. You know, like that's really, really important. And then you realize that, like, you know, that oneness doesn't always mean being the same, and that, like, all of these people are in this place for a common love. And that if we can offer something that bypasses, that transcends everything that's supposed to matter, then we are contributing to the healing of the world. You know what I'm saying? And so knowing and loving who you are and knowing that you are worthy to be where you are at and sharing from that space is like the best thing you can do to heal the hurts that have been inflicted. Yeah. Because you allow people to see beyond their preconceptions of what you should be.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's so terribly important. It's so terribly important to know that you deserve that.
Yeah.
And to know that what you have to offer is valuable. And if you can't offer that, to support whoever can.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so, you know, this is the beauty of life. And this is the opportunity that horses allow us to have.
Yeah.
To say, yes, it has by tradition been dominated by white folks. And but that we do have in history great black equestrians who've changed the course of history. Tom Bass, you know, in this American saddlebred world, he got offered to go to Queen Victoria's Jubilee celebration. Dude was born a slave, and he created a bit that they still use to this day. But because he didn't have the business sense, he died poor.
Yeah.
Off of a bit that they still use today. He was born in 1890. And like his kin could still be living off of the royalties of that conversation that he had with that Bear Bell Beach about a bit that was more gentle for horses. And there was I mean and he was the first black in the United States. He was the first black person to present in a championship with white people.
Right.
You know, and was regarded, people from all over Europe, the high school riders from the Cadre Noir and France, and he had recognition in Europe as a master of the high school art, which is equivalent to the Grand Prix dressage today. You know, I mean, and he was self-taught. You know, had a mule cantering backwards when he was a boy. You know, I mean, and like it's really important to know that, you know, that. And there's only one book that's been written about him. It's called Whisperer on the Wind. It's a biography. It is magnificent. But, you know, I mean, it's important to know that, you know, there aren't a lot of examples of people who've made it, but there are people who've made it, and it's important for us to know who they are.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's important for everybody to know who they are, because he changed the course of history for black equestrians in the country.
Yeah.
He was the first person to integrate horse shows. You know? So, you know, I mean, it's, you know, and I nerd out on this stuff, and I feel like I'm rambling now, but like it's just really important to know that, like, you deserve a space. So,
yeah. It's okay. You can nerd out on horsey things. We're not going to judge you.
Yeah, no, but it's really important, and like this is all that goes into making it work.
Yeah.
you know, this is what it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to cost you everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're willing to give that, you will get an incredible return.
Yes. That is
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Sure do.
So, you know, that's all.
Well, thank you so much, Nahshon. It has been a blast.
Yeah, and thank you guys for you know, deeming me worthwhile to reach out to. I'm incredibly honored, and you know, if there's anything that I can do to help, please let me know, and I'll do the best that I can.
Thank you for listening to Young Black Equestrians, the podcast. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates. Listen, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. See you next time.